I always say this: drugs and alcohol weren't a problem; they were a solution. When I first started using drugs, my business in my 20s went through the roof because now I was more confident, I was more secure, I dated better looking girls, I drive faster cars, and I had money, so I was the perfect drug dealer client. I was making 300, 400, 500,000 a year, and I had 2 houses, a couple cars, and within 2 years, I had nothing. And at that point, I lost everything I had. Not even just the money and the houses and cars, but I lost myself. Like, I had no friend. You couldn't be my friend because I was so toxic. Yeah, I was always trying to be somebody else. It pushed me to overexceed in sports. I was a great athlete. It didn't work. At that point, I got out of jail. I was on food stamps. I was on mass health insurance. I didn't have a license. I didn't have a place to live. I was poverty stricken. I was in debt $700 grand. And I literally, all I wanted to do, because I didn't think I'd ever be successful, I just thought I just don't want to embarrass my mother.
You are welcome to Spot On with StephREDD.
How are you, StephREDD, today?
I am fantastic. In Spot On with StephREDD, we talk about different topics, just different issues.
There's a form of artist in everyone.
I love to be very independent.
And the recognition of the genius that we are and who we are.
I sound very smart, but I have zero education.
I always learn something from everybody I work with.
To see how we can embrace new perspectives and, quite importantly, be able to progressively evolve with the fullness of who we are, the fullness of our genius.
When you are living a fulfilled life, that means that's the feedback loop that you are on the right path.
When you can give value to someone, that's your greatest gift to the world, and that's when people will listen to you.
And then begin to impact our world with that genius, one person at a time. Are you all doing? You're welcome to another episode of Spot On with StephREDD. Today, I have a phenomenal guest. I always say that, who's not only conquered formidable challenges, but has emerged stronger on the other side. Now, his name is Ryan Skinner. Fear, anxiety, depression, and addiction once cast a long shadow over his life. But today, Ryan stands as a testament to resilience and transformation. Our guest navigated through the depths of drugs, faced the harsh realities of incarceration, and is currently navigating the complexities of a divorce. Ryan's journey is a raw and authentic exploration of the human experience, one that delves into the darkest corners and ultimately finds the light. Now living a successful life, Ryan Skinner generously offered to share his story, providing insights into the struggles and triumphs that defined his path. Join us as we welcome a genius, like I like to say, we're all geniuses, whose journey embodies the power of overcoming adversity and finding hope in unexpected places. Give it up for Ryan. Hi, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am fantastic. Oh, yes, I am. So thank you again for agreeing to have this experiential moment, I will call it, with me. And I'll just let us dive in, straight into it. Tell us how it all began. Take us back to that place where you experienced fear, anxiety, where depression set in, and where addiction took over and just had this significant toll on your life. What exactly was that period like? Tell us about it.
I mean, I could go back as a child. I had fear and anxiety. I was one of those kids. I would see a TV show and they'd be talking about somebody who had cancer, like skin cancer, and I'd be convinced I had skin cancer. And I'm talking like third grade, fourth grade. I would think of this and that, always be afraid of getting hurt. I had an uncle who was an alcoholic, so I was afraid of alcohol. So in high school, I would go to parties and I would hold a cup and dump it every so often, but I would never drink it. College, I started realizing, like, wow, if I have a few drinks, because I had a fear of talking to girls. I mean, in high school, every date I went on, a girl asked me. I was painfully shy and awkward. I was lucky I was pretty good at sports, so I at least had friends, but I was socially awkward. I didn't like to go out. I was always afraid of, you name it, car accident. I was afraid of everything. Mainly, I was afraid of what people thought of me. In college, when I discovered drinking, I realized something like, when I put a drink in my body, I became smarter, better looking. I could talk to good looking girls. I could do anything. The problem I realized in college was when I drank, if I drank on a Tuesday, I didn't know when I was going to stop. I might be drunk for 2 days. I remember being like, whoa, this is out of control. At one point, I had made some bad decisions, and my father threw me out of his house. My parents, they didn't have money. My mother was a housekeeper by day. She cleaned office at night. My dad had 2 jobs. My father said, we have integrity. If you're not living the right way, get out of my house. He threw me out. And I don't blame him now looking back. At the time, I didn't like it. And I lived with a girl when I was in college, and this girl bartended. We lived a fast life, and I remember thinking, if I'm going to have any shot at opening this financial business that I want to go into, I can't be around this. I can't be drinking because I just don't know where it stops. I can't study if I'm drinking 4 days on, or I get drunk and I miss the next day. And so I asked my dad the day before I graduated if I could come home, and he said, yeah. He said, but you cannot drink. The BMW you bought with making money the wrong way. You're not driving that BMW. You can drive your mother's Volkswagen. You had a bungee cord holding the hood down. And he said after that, you have a 10 p.m. curfew 7 days a week if you live in my house. I went there for a year and a half. I didn't drink. I didn't go out past 10, and I drove that stupid car. And I will tell you, my life got good. My life got really good, like shockingly good. And it took off. So I went off and bought a house, because that's what you do when you have success. So 22, I have a 2-family, and I moved in with me. And now all my fears, came back, roaring back, and they came back big time. I was afraid of being alone. I was social anxiety. I was afraid. I'm in a business where it was all commission. So one day you're the king of the castle, next the big dog. The next day you're the fire hydrant. The dog's peeing on you. It's so up and down, and that anxiety drove me more and more. And I'd be out drinking with guys from the business. And next thing I knew, I was drinking a lot, but I wasn't an alcoholic. Business was good. I was flourishing. I had a surgery. I'll never forget. I had 2 Percocet, and I was like, wow. My anxiety went away. But when my script went away, when I ran out, I just didn't do them again. Fast forward, I had a major surgery. I bled out. I was in a coma because the drinking. I had ulcers. It wore on my esophagus. About 30 days later, I come out of the coma, and I go to see the doctor. And after I get out of the hospital, I say, I feel great. He says, the problem is we found some tumors inside your stomach on the outside, and we're going to do some surgeries. We're going to put you on Oxycontin. Now then, I'm going to be honest with you. I grew up, I had 2 groups of friends. Really good guys that were in school, got jobs, and gangsters. Just hardcore mobsters. And I remember the hardcore guys, back in the day, they would sell Oxycontin. And I remember seeing a guy so sick because he ran out that he traded a Rolex off his wrist for 1 pill. And I remember thinking, wow, that guy's a junkie. How is he so weak? So when they offered me a prescription, I said, oh, yeah, no problem. I'm thinking, I'm 25. I'm not a drug addict. I'm a finance guy. What could go wrong? What could go wrong was for the next 9 months, I got hooked on those. They then said, hey, no more surgeries. We're going to take you off over the next month. And they tried taking me down from 6 OC80s a day. Just to give you some perspective, 6 Oxycontin 80s is the equivalent of taking, each one is like taking 16. It's about taking 800 Percocets a day. That was my script. And they wanted to take me off in a month. And they took me off, and then I found somebody on the street to buy them from. And I had money, so I was the perfect drug dealer client. I was making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, and I had 2 houses, a couple cars, and within 2 years, I had nothing. Oh, wow. And at that point, I lost everything I had. Not even just the money and the houses and cars, but I lost myself. I had no friend. You couldn't be my friend because I was so toxic. I had guys that couldn't be around me because wise guys were afraid I was going to open my mouth and do something stupid to get them arrested. Finance people and nice people that had education, teachers, doctors, my friends like that, they didn't want to be around me because I was just a bad guy. I remember being so sick from not having pills. They call it dope sick. And the kid said, well, I got heroin. You can snort it. You don't have to shoot it. So I sniffed a little heroin. I felt better. And I thought I would never shoot heroin. I'm afraid of needles. And a week later, I thought, if I'm going to do it, I'll do it right. I started shooting heroin. And at first, people had to shoot me. And at the end, I was shooting myself. I was waking up in shooting galleries, sleeping on the streets. Finally, I was catching enough court cases. I was breaking the law enough that I was getting arrested, and I hit the lottery. If you're gonna get arrested for a drug problem, being in the town I was in, Woburn, is like hitting the lottery. The guy who's the chief now was the head detective back then. We met when he Narcaned me. I was in a bathroom. I overdosed, and he broke into the bathroom and brought me back to life. Not only is he one of my best friends now, he's a client. He's been on my podcast. This is a guy who literally, he arrested me like 18 times, 20 times. And he's one of my closest friends. The guy who runs the courthouse, his name's Vince Pero. I walked in, I knew we were friends. I said, Vinny, you're not going to put me in jail. You're not going to screw me over. And he said, Ryan, you've been breaking the law for years. I'm locking you up. These people did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I mean, talk about friends. Like, it's hard to do that to a friend. It's hard to put a guy in jail that you love. These guys did the right thing, and because they did the right thing, they saved my life. I mean, I was a bottom of the barrel junkie. At the end, I had a TV on the wall of a condo that I had that was in foreclosure. So, eventually, like most people that swear they'll never do drugs because you don't want to be a heroin addict because that's a junkie. I never saw heroin addicts growing up. I wasn't raised that way. I didn't have junkies in my family, and I say junkie not because I believe that's what people are, but because that's the way you always looked at it. Like, and you'd feel bad. I mean, I was a good kid. I was empathetic. I used to think, oh, that poor person. If I saw a homeless guy, I never thought I'd be the homeless guy.
Wow.
I remember being at the bottom, and I remember going somewhere and saying something. I forget what I said. I was like screwed up, and I said to somebody, can you give me something to eat? I'll pay you later. I'll put it on the company. Hey, no, you're not going to pay me. You have no money. I said to him, because I used to have tough guy friends, I said, do you know who I am? And he goes, yeah, I know who you are. You're a junkie.
Wow.
And that's when it hit me. And then one of the last times I was arrested, I was in a jail cell. And the chief of police, who's the chief now, he's a detective, that walks by and says, I'm going to buy you lunch from a sub shop, so I got to eat something to eat. And I said, don't even look at me. I'm a junkie. I'm trash. Don't look at me, please. And he said, Ryan, there was one perfect person. We crucified him. And at that point, here's this guy who arrested me. But for whatever reason, like, I don't know how to articulate it. He cared. He genuinely cared. And it made me feel like a human for that window. And after that, I had one big arrest, and I wasn't going to be able to get bail. And he literally let me out for the weekend to see my parents because he thought I might be going away for a while. And through the grace of God, I didn't do a lot of jail time. I mean, I did a little. I went to programs. I got my life rebuilt. One day at a time, somebody came in my path and kind of guided me. There's these God shots. These people would cross my path, and I wouldn't know where they come from or why they're having an influence. But on the day I needed it most, there was somebody there, different person, usually a stranger, that would guide me out of the gates of hell.
Wow.
There was a guy who sponsored me named Billy, and he probably the most amazing person. He called my mother when I was in jail. Like, who calls somebody else's mother when they're in jail? He didn't even know my mother. He didn't really know me that well. And he called her. He said, I'm going to call her. I said, you going to listen to this old Irish broad cry? And he said, yeah, I am. And that's when I learned about being what they call it, a recovery man, like how you live that way. It's about doing things not because you're comfortable, not because you want to, but because it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
And I find this day, especially these days, when I do the right thing for the right reasons, and I don't have my usual, because I was a selfish, self-seeking. I can still be a very selfish, manipulative person when I'm up to my own devices. But when this person put my hand in the hand of God's, and to God's different to different people, you know what I mean? I have friends that are Christian, Catholic, Muslim, but it's kind of the same thing. We're all going to the same, upline. We're looking for the same source. And when He connected me to that source, I was able to change my life. I was able to get sober, and at one point I relapsed, but I was able to get sober again when I tapped into that source. I was able to build a business that was way bigger than when I had my 20s. I didn't even think this was possible. I went from being a homeless guy to having everything I could imagine. I have a daughter. I have a stepdaughter. Like, I'm a dad. Like, I'm not just a father. I'm a dad. Like, I go home. I play with the Power Wheels with my mother. My younger daughter has autism, and I play with her, and I'm taking classes to learn how to be a better autistic dad. And she's unbelievable. She's the best gift I've ever had. My oldest daughter, I'm driving to school, and I'm jamming out this morning to Lana Del Rey, some show. I don't know what the hell the song was, Birthday or something like that. And I'm just playing music with her and singing, and it just, she thinks I'm a geek, and that's awesome. Those are the gifts. I thought it was the stuff, but it's not so.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's a lot. But if it's okay for me to take you back, I'd like us to go back to, you started off by saying that you used to be an awkward kid, that you were socially awkward. And in the last 2 weeks, you are the third person I'm hearing saying this particular thing. And I typically always ask the question, at what point did you realize or did you begin to feel that you were socially awkward? Do you remember the
My
exact
whole
time
life.
or what exactly? When was the first time you ever felt? I mean, hey, you started crawling and then you started walking a bit and then you started talking and then you knew the difference between Papa and Mama. Have you ever tried to think back? When exactly was that first time that you felt socially awkward?
First time I ever felt awkward, I remember walking to school. Well, actually, I remember being in kindergarten, and we had to do this little graduation from kindergarten. And it was this guy who lived around the block. Not a guy; he was an eighth grader, and you always had what they called the big buddy. You were a kindergarten kid. There was a eighth grader that would walk with you and
Yeah.
taught you, whatever. And I remember thinking, like, walking up the aisle, like it was at a church because it was Catholic school, and feeling so awkward, people looking at me, and feeling so out of place. Um, it was also hard. I mean, when I was a child, my uncle, who was an alcoholic, used to yell at me and call me ugly, and he was really abusive, and that took a toll on me. And I think that might have impacted me because I look at my cousins from the same family and my sister. Nobody else seems to have all the same isms as me. It's like I look at my cousins, for example, and I look at like they got the playbook for life. My older cousin's in finance, great guy. His sister, my cousin Erin, nurse, tremendous girl. My other cousin Scotty, who's like the closest thing I've ever had to a brother. Sean and I were close, but Scott and I were like this. He's a state trooper, police officer, and he's a great guy, a tremendous guy. So I look at it and I say, well, what is it with them that I did? And I don't know. I mean, some of it's DNA, but it was awkward right from the jump. I've never ever felt comfortable in my own skin until I found drugs and alcohol.
So if you think about it now, I mean, you just mentioned that you had an uncle that always used to yell at you, and then
Yeah.
yeah, and then somewhat compare. You felt compared with other people. So have you ever thought about the possibility that in those times when you were being compared, that was the first time you began to realize the difference? And the reason for the awkwardness was probably because you felt you were not the one that would be appreciated. You were actually would I say, the one on the other side, the awkward child. Can't you see this person? So the anxiety about yourself, what is the possibility that it began to grow from that place where you saw yourself less than someone else and concerned or anxious?
I've never thought of that until you just said that. We were always, my older cousins were tremendous kids, and my mother always said, my nana, my grandmother always said, like, hey, you want to be like Sean, you want to be, what a great kid, you want to be, and I always try to idolize him. And you're right, when you try to be somebody else, you're not comfortable being yourself. And my younger cousin, who was like my brother, it was his older brother, he didn't care to be like anyone else. He was like, he didn't care if like his parents were impressed or not. He was just him. And to this day, you sit with that kid, and he's just right with himself. And I'm like, wow, you got the, just some people are wired that way. But for me, I was always trying to be somebody else. It pushed me to overexceed in sports. I was a great athlete. It didn't work. I mean, I've set records in my industry, and the reason I've done that is because, frankly, it's not, people think it's out of drive because I want stuff, materialism or something. No, it's out of fear of being poor and fear of being less than. That's what drives me. It's not about the accolades. It's about the fear.
About the
pain.
fear. Oh wow! I mean, this is just different things we're bringing up now. I mean, that part of, which is why sometimes always told as parents we may think we're pushing our children to be the best, but if we don't use the right words, they begin to actually feel less. They begin to think that they're not good enough. And I give an example. Once that I always tell my son, "Hey, I know you are better than this, and you can do better." But over time, and then
That's a great way to put
and
it.
then sometime, but before then, sometimes I used to say, hey, this person in your class, the person, I don't think they're smarter than you, but they're doing better than you. They don't have 10 heads. And if they don't have 10 heads and they have one, then you can do just as good. And I said that for a while, up until one day I was actually having a no holds barred conversation with him and just asking, what do you think about this thing? And then he said, he thinks he's not as good as them. And I said, no, I am not trying to compare you with them. I'm trying to let you know that just as they are genius, you too are genius. So you need to begin to play from your place of genius and let that genius shine. Because the thing is, you can be genius and never shine with the genius if you don't put that genius to work. And just telling that,
That's
okay,
all.
they have their genius, they're putting it to work and excelling. You have your genius and you're not putting it to work now. And then he begins to feel sad that he's not being rewarded. I said, they are being rewarded because they put their genius to work. I don't want you to copy their genius. I want you to display yours and reach deep for that. But then the thing is, as parents, sometimes, I mean, growing up, our parents hardly had such conversations with us.
Yeah, I know.
And it's just a thing of comparison. Look at this person, look at that person. And before we know it, we think that person is better. And then we're doing everything to want to be like and never feel enough in ourselves. We're looking over our shoulders. We're anxious about showing up. We're wondering, will they like me? Will they hate me? Am I dressed well? Am I tall enough?
Yeah.
Do I have the voice enough and all of it? And we're just connecting all of that to think that all the anxiety and I like when you said that you were awkward up, you felt awkward up until the first day you tasted alcohol. I'm like, it made you feel good. And
Yeah.
really, that's where we now find out that a lot of people begin to hide behind a temporary high. It's not permanent. Now the things will
No.
consume it to a point where it begins to consume us.
I always say this: drugs and alcohol weren't a problem; they were a solution. When I first started using drugs, my business in my 20s went through the roof because now I was more confident, I was more secure, I dated better looking girls, I drive faster cars, and then whatever it gave, it took away times 10 because there's always that boomerang. It's not permanent.
Yeah.
I love how you put that with the genius of son. I'm going to use that with my kids. My older one, I tell her just do her best. I say, I don't care about your grades, just do your best. 'Cause she's straight A's. And I'm more concerned that she pushes herself too hard and she gets anxiety. I said, well, I don't give a damn about your grades. I go, good students make good employees. I was a
Yeah.
C student, and I have plenty of A students and hired people to work for me. I didn't think people work for me,
Yeah.
great employees, but you got to be different. I was lucky I couldn't read at a young age. So I knew stocks. So I was on TV trading stocks in seventh grade with one of the greatest brokers ever. I was in a book by ninth grade. So I knew I had my niche. I still can't read to save my life. My daughter outreads me any day, but I can try. The best in finance. That's all that matters. And that's the funny part. And then when I learned like the coaching, when I learned how to coach other guys and who were going through midlife crisis or who had businesses and wanted to succeed or who had a job like in sales and they needed to grow, and I showed them how like if you could get your discipline in your life, you start your day a certain way, your prayer, meditation, some journaling, working out, breaking a sweat, being there for your kids when they wake up, and then you have like a structure to your day. And bring God, the spirit of the universe, whatever it is you believe in, bring that into it. Because if you don't have something to tap into, you're wasting your time. None of us can do this alone. And when you do that, any one of us can be a genius. My little one, the one that has autism, I say to her all the time, "What did God make you?" And she goes, "Perfect." I go, "That's right. You're perfect. You're loved. You're smart. You're beautiful."
I love
But
that.
she knows if you ask her what God made her, she'll say perfect. And that's because nobody ever told me as a kid I was perfect. And to this age, I don't think I'm perfect. I've done a lot of work on myself, and I'm still a work in progress. I'm not where I want to
Yeah.
be.
It's interesting how, I was telling someone the other day, another gentleman, that I believe that we are all, Albert Einstein was right. I always say that everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, to spend the rest of his life believing that is stupid. And I believe strongly that we are all genius expressions of the different sides of God. That's what I believe. That I
I,
mean, God is so multifaceted. I mean, our creator, that he just like, you know what? I can't put all of myself in one person. They may not be able to handle it. So you take this expression of me, you take this expression of whatever it is. There's something unique about each human, autistic or not. The Paralympics, those people that probably they don't have limbs or whatever, whether they're born with it or whether they had an accident and they became like that or whatever, however it is that we're expressing on this side of the earth, largely I believe is to express a side of genius of our creator. And so I learned to just see everybody as genius. I learned to now just try to get people to say, have you sat to draw out that genius thing that only you can express? It's possible there are many of you that do it in your field, but there's a way that only you can do it, and that way can transform the world, right? So I totally love that we begin to, or I admonish that we begin to see the people around us like that. But I'm going to come to this. At what point did all of this, what I call it an affliction, the part of drinking and drugs and every other thing that came into it, even including the incarceration, how did it affect you personally, your home? What suffered, particularly beyond yourself? What suffered? I know you mentioned that you're going through a divorce that sucks. But what suffered? Was
that's
that part of what
devastating.
suffered? Tell me about it.
Well, that wasn't tied into the addiction, I should say. I mean, I'm sure there was at some level, but by the time I got married, I had already been out of jail, built a house, built a business. So the tough stuff was behind me. There was the
Yeah.
heroin, all that stuff was gone.
Mm,
So that by that point, it was about 6, 7 years since I had got my life back together.
yeah.
But what suffered at the time, was first of all me. Like I had lost myself. I was so busy in my 20s trying to impress people with what I made at work. I would spend everything I made just trying to show off. I was so
Wow.
insecure. So before it was drug and alcohol, I was showing off with financial stuff. And now I'm the opposite. I don't care what people think of what I make. Some people are impressed by the stuff I have. Some people aren't. If there was only two girls I want to look at me, and they're both my daughters. You know what I mean? I always say there's only two butts I'm grabbing, and it's one's 4, one's 11. And now the 11 one, I'm not really grabbing her butt anymore because she doesn't think it's cute, so I'm kissing her on the head. But there's only, that's who I want to impress. I want my daughters to know that, and my oldest might think I'm a geek at times, but she knows I would take a bullet for her, and that if anyone ever bother her, she's safe. She has me, and that's an important thing for me. Even going through a divorce, she doesn't really know yet. But when she needs to go to college, when she needs her first car, and her dad's a great guy. She's got a nice dad in her life, so it's not that it's just on me. And she's got a good mom. But she'll know that I'll be there. There's not a question. She'll be visiting me just like my regular daughter. It's not like I'm going to lose her. That's the gifts. That's the stuff that matters. That's the flashy stuff. That's the stuff I had lost before. I didn't have kids, but I had relationships. My parents, my mother scrubbed toilets to give me an education. And here's this woman was having to visit me in jail. She deserved better. That was the biggest driving force. Was I didn't want to embarrass my mother anymore. At that point, I got out of jail. I was on food stamps. I was on mass health insurance. I didn't have a license.
Wow.
I didn't have a place to live. I was poverty stricken. I was in debt $700,000 and I literally all I wanted to do, because I didn't think I'd ever be successful. I just thought I just don't want to embarrass my mother. If I could just not shoot heroin, I'd not embarrass her. Because I knew I could stay away from alcohol. Because if you can kick heroin, you can kick anything. So, but I remember thinking, if I could just not embarrass and hurt my mother anymore. My poor dad, he's a tough guy from the city of Summerville, which is a tough area around here. And he was broken. He would sit there like just broken, defeated. And I just broke them. And now when I see them, and my parents aren't impressed by material crap. They don't care about my sports car, my house, and any of that BS. But they are impressed when I'm on the ground playing with my daughter. When I'm skipping out of work to go take my little daughter to therapy or take my oldest daughter to where she wants. That's what that matters to them, because they're seeing me be the guy I'm meant to be. When I went from drugs, when I got sober, I became a workaholic. And unfortunately, with my history, there's certain people in the state that try to fight me about my licenses professionally, because some people they judge you on your past, not who you are today. I've always been able to prevail because I think when you do the right thing, God takes care of you. But it's been an interesting journey, and a lot of it has been, like you said, it's just tied back to like the destruction of the past. It's not gone; it stays with you forever. So I would say to you, like, oh, it ruined my family, my mom, dad, me, and later on, though, the addiction to work, that took my marriage out. I'll be honest. I told her when we got married, work was my first priority, but hearing it and living it are two different things, and I think she learned that.
Wow. So you say that you're putting a lot of energy into work, and one of the reasons why you work so hard is because you're afraid of losing, or you're afraid of poverty. Okay. If you had the guarantee that you would always win, if failure was not an option, what would you do differently?
It's funny. I started changing that this year. I cut my work hours down in half. Because I can still be efficient at work. I will trust my staff to be there more and not have to carry the load myself. And the coaching business, I love it. I love coaching people. I started a program at a jail. At one point, I was going to jail every week and coaching guys how to rebuild their lives. I love helping guys, especially guys in my industry, because you know what it is? Guys will make 150, 200 grand. And it sounds like a lot of money, but there's so much expenses to build a business in this. I mean, my business cost me 40 grand a month to run. So it's 400 grand a year just to run the place. So there's some of these places, and when I take a guy and I can get to the next level, there's a guy down the hall who's in my industry, and he doesn't do super well. He used to, but he's struggling. And I'm coaching him. I said, I'll coach you free because you can't afford me. So don't waste my time and your time with money, because that is insulting. But let's do this as a team. And I'm watching this guy go from 60 grand a year. He'll do 250 this year. And his wife has had some personal issues, and he can help her now. And I'm a part of that. It's something bigger than me. I love that. I'm sorry. That's where I get amped up. That's usually where I drop an F-bomb. Like, I get psyched about this. Like, it's something bigger. I get to help guys that are going from $250,000 to 500, from 500 to $1 million. I get to help executives at companies that already are making money in salaries and bonuses and stuff. I can't even help them grow, but I can help them learn how to have balance in life, how to wake up and take care of things. I used to wake up every day thinking that, waiting for negativity, anxiety, my head would race. 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. I lay in bed with like this. Now I wake up and I'm like, things are good. God's got this. I'll hit my knees, say a quick prayer, get a workout in. I'll do a quick meditation. I'll journal what came to mind and out the door. And I feel like something's carrying me. And now I'm helping other guys to have that same thing. So if I could do it, that's what I would do. I would help other guys get to the next level.
Yeah.
God will take care of me. I've been taken care of. I've seen that. Like, I'm living a life. I'm living a dream, to be honest with you.
Oh, wow.
But if I can help other guys get that, that's freaking amazing,
I mean, that's so beautiful to hear. To think that So how exactly was it transiting? I mean, having gone through incarceration and all of that, how did you manage to build? So that's like building from ground zero. After it's I can imagine that probably you lost a lot, you lost everything. You said you used to be on meal
Yeah.
tickets. How did you manage to build all over again to the point where you are now thriving in your business?
I built it so much bigger. My business does about 5 times what it used to do, four to six every year, what it used to do. Um, I'm going to be honest with you. I'd love to take credit because I still have that ego and that insecurity. That's a double-sided coin. But the truth is, you want the honest to God truth. It's God. Somebody taught me how to bring God into my life and get sober, and how to tap into it for strength. Then I can tap into God for relationships, and then I learned. I said, well, if God could do this, this, and this, why can't I make him my business partner? And then my buddy gave me a book to read, my sponsor, and I would read it every week. I'd drive up to this beach and I'd sit on the beach and read it. And I'd read this book and it would talk about making God your business partner. So I'm driving down the street after when I finished the book. I said, I'm going to make God my business partner. That's it. I look up at the street sign. I read the name. I said, boom, Summit Partners. And right there, God became my business partner on one of my business ventures.
Yeah.
And to this day, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, I have clients, I get my client tonight. It's just a bunch of people coming together, hugging, having a great dinner. It's just, I can't believe this in my life. And I'm going to tell you, none of it's due to me. I have a great sponsor. I have great guys around me. I surround myself with a crew of solid people, good mentors, and I just try to do the right thing. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I hire smart people. I'm not well spoken. I don't pronounce my R's. I'm not articulate. But I have my connection, my gift from God is the ability to connect with people. I know that. Like, that's my gift. And I use that. And the role he has me playing, I always say, if you're doing God's work, he's going to provide for you financially because he needs you to do his work. So if you're doing the light work, he's going to make sure you have money because if you can't chase money and do work. So if you're doing spiritual work, and it could be a profession. I look at it, helping people retire is spiritual to me. I see these people enjoy their grandkids, enjoy their lives. Helping people build their business or come out of a divorce, okay, that's spiritual to me. And I'm provided for. So I wish I could tell you I built the business.
That's
I just
amazing.
took this process I put in place years ago, and I use the same process, and I applied to business, this, that, and the other. And by using these spiritual tools that I've been given out, I get a good life.
Hmm. That's thank you so much for that. Would you say because I was going to ask what was a really pivotal point where you realized that you needed to turn your narrative and change it? Was it the desire to not see your parents go through the turmoil again, or what exactly was it?
I think that was probably the biggest factors. It was either that and nobody wants to be a junkie. I wasn't good. God doesn't make junk. And I remember thinking to myself, when I was in jail, I got a little chance out. It's funny, jail's very racially segregated, at least up where I live. There's the black group, the white group, the Hispanic group. And I was lucky, I grew up in a very diverse community. So when I got in jail, one of the kids, my good friends I grew up with, he had gone off the tracks too. So I had friends in every area. So I didn't have to sit with one segregated group. And there's a group of guys, black guys from the South that would do time.
Yeah.
And one of them knew the Bible well. He started a Bible study. Now, I was raised Catholic. I've never really been through the Bible. But this guy he was about to go to jail for life. And he said, my contribution to society is to teach you guys about God so when you go back, you don't have to come back. This guy's looking at life in prison, and he's doing this for us. He changed my life. He taught me how to pray because I knew this guy had nothing to lose. I mean, here's this guy. He's going to live forever. He has nothing to lose, nothing to gain. I mean, he's not getting parole or anything else. And he said, I'm going to teach you how to pray so when you walk out of here. And everybody else stayed in their own little cliques in jail. And I tell them when I volunteer at the jail, you guys better mingle because you're going to learn from each other. Each of us needs all of us. And this guy changed my prayer life and the way I live. And to this day, I'm forever indebted to it. I send him money every month to his guarantee. I'll do it as long as I'm alive. He was so kind to do that. He crossed barriers in there. He did what he wasn't supposed to do. And he saved this kid's life. And he really did save my life. And he allowed me to realize that, God doesn't make junk.
Yeah.
I don't have to be that. And then I could make my mother proud. It didn't have to be money. I might come out and just be a guy who walks around, no license for a long time, walks to AA meetings, polite to people, helps people take their trash out. And that's where I was for the first year or two. But my mother was proud because I was kind to people and I wasn't fighting or stabbing people, It was a real gift. I think it was a lot with my parents,
Yeah.
This guy made me realize I had self-worth. This guy who had taken somebody else's life, who was going away for life, that gave me a life.
Did you ever get an opportunity to tell him thank you? Did you actually
Oh my
appreciate
God,
him? Okay.
thank you. I thank him every month.
Okay. Oh, awesome.
You kidding me? I'll never stop thanking him.
Awesome. Awesome.
I help him out with canteen money. I help his family out when they need stuff.
Oh, wow.
He's a brother to me,
Oh, wow.
and he's done amazing things. I watched him. He had to go up to a real tough prison after that. When they sentenced him, he went away to a tough place, and he's in a place that they have racial riots, and he's the guy who moderates it. He's just a tremendous human being. Um, it's hard to believe that I say this, but if he was out, he would be the kind of guy I'd have around my kids.
Oh, wow.
I know, like, he's got some serious
wow.
past, but the guy he is today,
Mm.
he's doing God's work.
Oh, that's
Whatever
amazing.
God people believe in, this guy you look in his eyes, you know there's something special.
Mm.
So,
Wow. Do you ever feel, sometimes there are people that go through situations like yours or even worse or whatever it is that they go through, and they never feel they never overcome the anxiety or the shame that it caused them, and then they never talk about it. What has encouraged you or given you the courage to talk about your experiences of fear, anxiety, drug abuse, and even incarceration? What has given you the courage to talk about it and to even possibly influence or affect people positively with the story that you share?
well, so back to that guy, he told me, he said, listen, you don't have to know much about the Bible, but I'm going to teach you a few quotes. And this one is, to whom much is given, much is expected. God gave me a gift. I don't have a choice on whether I talk about it. Do I want to always go out and share that? No. Do I like that 90% of my clients know I was a heroin addict and I went to prison? No, it's not my proudest moment. But this is who I am. And for me to lead and show other people you can do this with that pain in your back, you don't have to run from me. My past doesn't define me, it strengthens me.
Yeah.
And I need people to realize that, because otherwise they're going to try to run for their past and hide. If you do that, it's going to come out eventually.
Yeah.
Everything comes out. Maybe not all my clients, maybe even 5% would have known, but I like that they could look at me. I've had 20 clients ask me to help for their kids. 5 in the last year come in, and I've helped their kids get into treatment. They come in, nothing to do with their finances. I help their kids get into treatment for addiction.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a gift? That's a home run.
Yeah.
That's a home run.
Yeah.
If I can help one less mother cry, that's a gift right there. And so it started with that guy teaching me that, and also there were 2 other people. My responsibility really helped me get through a lot of my guilt and shame. I didn't realize I was still carrying a lot until I started still having setbacks. And I worked with a guy named Dr. Rob Kelly and his daughter Charlie, and they did a lot of. He was helping me get my business coaching off the ground, but subconsciously he was doing a lot of coaching recovery. He's a recovery specialist. He's worked with a lot of celebrities, big time guy, and he had a huge impact. And his daughter helped me get back to basics from my childhood and realize that shame could be put away, and it set me free. So that was probably the biggest impacts.
Oh, wow.
That was just in the last year. So up until, I was carrying this. I was still going forward with who I was, but I was carrying a lot of shame.
No, I'm just smiling from ear to ear. What exactly what would you share? What would you tell someone? What message of insight would you offer to someone who is probably going through or grappling with fear, anxiety, depression, even addiction, and for some they're at the point of suicide? What is that word of encouragement or that message of insight, would I say, that you would like to give to them?
I did have one suicide attempt that was serious, and through the grace of God, somebody found me and brought me back. But I would say to people, this is 2 things. One thing is this: today's the day. Like, you can change your whole life today. It doesn't matter what you did yesterday, and tomorrow's not going to happen. But if you could just take the right steps today, people think that you have to stay sober forever. When I got clean sober, I didn't stay clean forever. I had to stay clean today. I can use tomorrow. When tomorrow comes, I have to stay clean that day. I can use the next day. And suddenly, you get a little time. So it's what you do today and the actions. And a guy used to say the actions don't care why you take them. This guy used to tell me all the time. Just do the actions. The results will follow. Do the legwork. God will handle the results. And in terms of the shame and the anxiety, a guy taught me this about in the last year. My buddy Chuck always says, move a muscle, change a thought. When I'm having anxiety and sitting in pain, if I go work out, it's not something that I can always feel better after. Write down gratitude lists every day. I write 10 things a day and why I'm grateful for it. If you do that sort of stuff, you will get out of it. If you sit in it and you don't want to do it because, it's like I'm in anxiety, I'm having depression, I can't get out of it, well, then you won't get out of it. And you got to sit in it, and that's life. It's a choice. It's not an easy choice, but if you just take one action, get that handled, followed by another action, and just keep it moving.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Keep your day busy. Keep moving.
Yeah, keep moving. Oh wow, I've been speaking with Ryan. I mean, Ryan is just being. I'm excited. What I say, I feel warm. Trying, for the lack of a better expression, just hearing from you and hearing how you've navigated thus far, and it's really an inspiration. Really an inspiration. And I would like to ask, what are your aspirations from here? What is next for Ryan? What are you looking forward to? How do you envisage levering your experiences even further to inspire and support other people that may be facing a similar challenge? What are also your aspirations for self, for family? What is that compelling future that draws at you, that you're looking towards or looking forward to?
It's funny when the new year comes up. At the end of every year, I look at where I was, what happened that year. And
Yeah.
last year was a tremendous year professionally and even personally. Like us filing for divorce, it was necessary. It was a good step that we took.
Wow.
Um, this year, I got a lot of things on the docket. We're opening an office down in Florida, which is great. I've always wanted to do it. I just never did it. It was a dream, and I just said, why not? In addition, the coaching business is starting to take off. And any of your listeners need any questions on it, things I can help, they can always reach out. I mean, I can't promise I can always help people, but I'm willing to try. And the motivational speaking, I'm doing a lot of speaking now at investment companies, financial sales departments. They bring me in because I went from being a homeless heroin addict to multi seven figure a year business, and it
Wow.
doesn't just happen. There's a system, and it's not. And I'm not
Yeah.
unique. That's the funny part. That's what it's good for people to see is I was a junkie. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm not that bright. I'm not that unique.
Yeah.
It's just about having a process and tapping into God. And the biggest thing this year is I'm building things in a way that I have a lot of time with my daughters, especially my youngest one. She's growing so fast with the autism. Um, she deserves that. You can't buy time. But I was on a podcast last week, and the guy said, "If you have any superpower, what it would be?" At first, I thought I wanted to fly, and I said, "No, I want to be able to multiply time, be in two places at once." And you can't do that. So my biggest priority is my girls. My friends all say, "Oh, you're single, you're gonna date, you're gonna do this down in Florida." I said, "Absolutely not. I just want to be a dad. The other stuff will take care of itself."
Oh wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Ryan. It's been heartwarming talking to you. Thank you for sharing your
It'd be great time.
experience. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing. This is such a resilient story, a story of comeback, a story of I can be better. And even though I don't align with the fact of you're not the smartest, you're not so smart, hey, you are smart. I believe we all are smart. Sometimes we want to try and we're trying. I don't know if we're trying to be humble or want to make it seem like, oh, it's not. I'm not so smart. You are smart, Ryan. Take it from me.
Thank you.
Yes, you are. Oh, I'm not that. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. You are smart from your corner, right? You are smart at what you do, and you are a genius in that thing that you do. It may not be someone else's genius, but you're a genius at it. You're smart at it, and you are a reflection of your God from it. So, I wear that crown on you, on your behalf, and I say thank you for. I say thank you for
This was
sharing.
amazing. This was like therapy. I realized stuff on this podcast today I never even thought about. So I can't thank you enough. It's been an awesome experience. You're a very delightful person. You've got a bright personality, so it's
Thank
nice.
you. Thank you. Thank you. It's my honor. I'm actually calling you from Lagos, Nigeria. Where are you?
Are you in Nigeria? No kidding.
Yes,
I was gonna say
I
I
am.
knew you had an accent. I didn't know. That's awesome, huh?
I'm
I'm always
Nigerian.
intrigued. I'm always intrigued about anything overseas. I've left Massachusetts probably 10 times in my life.
Oh, wow.
When you're from Boston, you don't go far. But that's amazing.
Thank you. I'm in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Nigerian. I live here. It's 5:07 p.m. my time. What time is it
Okay,
yours?
so 6 hours, 11:07.
Yeah, so that's 6 hours difference. Oh wow. All right, but
Yeah.
it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
this is
Go have some
where
dinner.
yeah, this is where we call it a close, just to say thank you to our listeners, as many as are going to be listening wherever you're watching from. This is an inspiring story. And just to let you know, even though we tend to say don't compare one person with another, but I believe the real reason for the comparison is not to make you feel less than yourself, is to make you realize that if one other human that God has created can do genius things, there's also a genius in you, and you can Tap into that genius and impact the world with the genius. The world is awaiting your manifestation. The world is awaiting you showing up and not wanting to be like anyone, but the best version of yourself every day. And like I like to say, that even while you're on that journey, no matter what comes or goes, no matter what gives in or doesn't, you never give up until you win. And even if you don't win, because winning is not always guaranteed, ensure by all means that you finish strong. And if you still have strength in you, do it all over again and impact the world with your genius. Up until the next time, Spot On with StephREDD. Stay amazing and stay genius. Cheers.